You want them to know they got to you. Someone wronged you, lied about you, took something, said something, tried to make you small. And every instinct is screaming at you to respond, to set the record straight, to make them feel what you felt. Don't. Because there is something that happens to your enemies when you go completely silent, and almost no one has the patience to find out what it is. They expect your noise. They've planned for your anger. What they have no defense against is a man who simply says nothing and keeps moving. In the next few minutes, I'll show you exactly what silence does to the people who came against you. This isn't passivity. It's the most disciplined weapon the Stoics ever carried, and it works on the people who hurt you in ways your words never could. Stay to the end, because the last thing silence does is the one that ends the conflict entirely, in your favor, without you ever lifting a hand. The first thing your silence does is cut off their supply. Understand what most enemies actually want. It's rarely the thing itself. It's your reaction. The provocateur isn't really after the argument. He's after the moment your face changes. The person spreading the rumor wants to watch you scramble. The one who insulted you wants to see it land. Your emotional response is the entire payoff, and the second you give it, you've paid them in full. So withhold it. Give them nothing to feed on and watch what happens. A fire with no fuel doesn't keep burning out of principle. It dies. The provocation that gets no reaction has nowhere to go. They threw a punch into empty air and now they're off balance, looking around for the fight that didn't start. The Stoics understood that the reaction was always the real choice point. Epictetus taught, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The enemy controls what happens. You control the reaction. And the reaction is the only part that ever mattered. Keep it and you keep everything. Picture the person who's been trying to bait you for weeks. Every comment is designed to get a rise. And then one day you simply stop giving one. No defense, no anger, no engagement. Just calm and silence. Within a short while they escalate because the lack of response is unbearable to them, and when even the escalation gets nothing, they burn out. They were running entirely on your fuel and you turned off the tap. There's a deeper thing happening too. Every time you don't react, you grow a little stronger and they grow a little more confused. The man who can be provoked is a man with handles all over him, and anyone can grab one. The man who can't be provoked has no handles left. There's nothing to hold. The action. The next time someone comes at you looking for a reaction, give them total calm and total silence. Don't explain the silence either. Just deny them the one thing they actually came for, and watch the fire go out for lack of air. When you stay quiet, the other person can't stand the vacuum, and they start filling it with themselves. This is one of the strangest things about silence. People are so uncomfortable with it that they will keep talking to make it stop, and the more they talk, the more they show you exactly who they are. The enemy who expected a fight, met instead with calm, will often keep going on their own, escalating, contradicting themselves, saying the thing they meant to keep hidden. Your silence becomes a space they trip into. A man arguing against silence has no opponent to push against, so he starts pushing against nothing, and loses his footing. He shows his hand. He reveals his real motive. He says the cruel thing he'd planned to keep behind a polite mask, because the silence unnerved him into it. You learn more about your enemy in 30 seconds of saying nothing than in an hour of arguing. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly to watch and understand people rather than fight them. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When you stay composed and silent while they unravel, you're not stooping to their game. You're letting them play it alone, and a man playing a hostile game alone always ends up exposed. There's a tactical truth here that disciplined men have always known. He who speaks first in a tense moment often reveals the most, and the one who waits learns the most. Silence isn't empty. It's a tool that makes the other person do your information gathering for you. They tell you their fears, their intentions, their weaknesses, all because they couldn't sit in the quiet. Picture a confrontation where you simply hold still and say nothing. The other person, rattled by the calm, keeps talking, and within a minute they've admitted the real reason they're upset, or shown a cruelty they meant to hide, or contradicted the story they walked in with. You didn't pull any of it out of them. The silence did. They handed you the truth just to escape the quiet. The action. In your next tense conversation, resist filling the silence. Ask your question or state your point, then go quiet and stay there. Let them fill the space. Pay attention to what they reveal when they can't bear the quiet, because that's the truth they didn't mean to give you. Your enemy wants you to give them ammunition. Silence refuses to load the gun. Think about how conflicts actually spread. The person who came against you needs a narrative. Did you hear what he said back? You should have seen how he reacted. He completely lost it. They want a scene, an outburst, a quotable line they can carry to other people and use to make you look unstable, aggressive, or weak. The moment you react loudly, you've written the story for them. You've handed them the very evidence they were missing. Stay silent, and there's nothing to repeat. No outburst to describe. No cruel line they can quote. No scene that makes you look like the problem. They go looking for the story and find a blank page. And a man with no story to tell about you eventually has to talk about himself, which never flatters the one who started the conflict. Marcus Aurelius, who had real enemies and real reasons to retaliate, chose instead to keep his own conduct clean. How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only to what he does himself. He understood that the only reputation you actually control is the one your own behavior writes. Give them nothing to point to, and their accusations float free with no anchor. This is why the loud response so often backfires. You think you're defending your reputation, but you're actually authoring the exact scene your enemy needed. The screenshots, the witnesses, that you should have seen him all require your participation. Withhold it, and the slander has no body to it. It becomes one person's word against a calm, consistent man, and calm consistency wins that contest every time. Picture someone trying to provoke you in front of others, fishing for the reaction they can later describe. The man who explodes gives them the highlight reel. The man who stays quiet and unbothered leaves them with nothing to show. Later, when the provoker tries to tell people how it went, there's no scene to tell. The story dies because you never gave it a body. The action. When someone is clearly fishing for a reaction they can use against you, give them silence and steadiness instead. Don't write the scene they need. Let them walk away with a blank page and watch how quickly the conflict loses its fuel. The same silence that protects you quietly reverses the picture. Now they're the one who looks unhinged. This is one of the most powerful effects, and it costs you nothing. When someone attacks and you respond with the same heat, you both look like two people fighting. The contrast disappears. But when someone attacks and you stay perfectly calm, the contrast becomes the whole story. Their aggression now has a backdrop of your composure, and against that backdrop, they look exactly as out of control as they're behaving. You don't have to say a word about it. The calm does the work. Anyone watching makes the comparison automatically. Here's one person, loud, agitated, swinging. Here's another, steady, unbothered, in command of himself. People draw the obvious conclusion about who has the stronger position, and it's never the one losing his composure. Seneca described what real strength looks like, and it isn't loud. It is the power of the mind to be unconquered. The unconquered man doesn't need to shout that he's unconquered. He demonstrates it by remaining unmoved while the storm breaks against him. The storm exhausts itself. He's still standing exactly where he stood. There's a quiet justice in this. The aggressor usually wants to provoke you into looking like the aggressor, so they can claim they were the victim all along. Your calm denies them that completely. The harder they push against your steadiness, the more clearly everyone sees who's actually doing the pushing. You become the still point, and they become the disturbance. Picture a public clash where one person is escalating and you simply will not escalate with them. Each thing they throw lands against your calm and falls away. To everyone watching, and eventually even to themselves, it becomes painfully obvious that you're the composed one and they're the one coming apart. You didn't accuse them of anything. You just stayed still and the contrast indicted them for you. The action. When attacked, make your calm visible and unbroken. Don't match their energy. Let your steadiness stand right next to their agitation, and let everyone, including them, draw the comparison on their own. Here's what silence does for you while it works on them. It frees your hands to build. Engaging your enemies is expensive. Every hour spent arguing, defending, plotting a comeback, replaying the slight, is an hour stolen from your own life. The conflict is a tax on your attention, and the loud man pays it constantly. He's so busy fighting that he never gets anywhere, and his stagnation becomes the very thing his enemies were hoping for. They wanted to slow you down. The argument is how they do it. Silence cuts that tax to zero. While they wait for your response, obsess over your reaction, keep poking for a fight that won't start, you're elsewhere, doing the work that actually changes your position. The energy you didn't spend on them goes into your own life instead. And nothing unsettles an enemy like watching the person they came against simply rise, calmly, without ever acknowledging them. Seneca was blunt about the cost of revenge. How much better to heal than seek revenge from injury? Vengeance wastes a lot of time and exposes you to many more injuries than the first that sparked it. He understood that the desire for payback is a trap that keeps you tangled with the very person you want to be rid of. Every hour of revenge is an hour you've handed back to your enemy. Silence takes those hours back and puts them into your own foundation. This is the part most men miss when they think Stoic silence means doing nothing. It's the opposite of doing nothing. It's redirecting all the energy a conflict would have eaten and pouring it into the only place that genuinely defeats an enemy, which is your own continued rise. The best response to someone who wished you down is to quietly, relentlessly go up. Picture two men wronged in the same way. One spends the next year consumed, fighting, defending, telling everyone the story, getting nowhere. The other says nothing, turns away, and pours that same year into his own work. 12 months later, one man is exactly where the conflict left him, still angry, still stuck. The other has moved so far forward that the original slight has become irrelevant. Silence didn't just protect him, it freed him to win. The action, when wronged, ask one question. Where would this energy do the most good, fighting them or building me? Then put every hour you'd have spent on the conflict into your own life instead. Let your rise be the only answer you ever give. Here is what silence does last, and it's the thing that ends the whole conflict in your favor. It makes your enemy disappear. Not literally, they still exist, but they stop mattering to you, and that is the only victory that was ever real. As long as you're reacting to someone, they occupy space in your mind, they have power over your mood, they're a presence in your life whether you want them there or not. Every reaction is a door you leave open for them to keep walking through. Silence closes the door, and a closed door held long enough turns a tormentor into a stranger. This is the final stage. First, your silence starves them. Then it exposes them. Then it makes their attacks look like the problem. Then it frees you to build. And finally, after enough time, you realize you've stopped thinking about them at all. They tried to be a force in your life, and you reduced them without a single word to someone you barely remember being angry at. There is no defeat more complete than being forgotten by the person you tried to destroy. Marcus Aurelius, who could have crushed his enemies with the full weight of an empire, chose a higher response. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy, and the deepest version of that is to become so absorbed in your own life, your own peace, your own work, that the enemy simply ceases to be relevant to it. You didn't beat them. You outgrew them. You walked so far down your own road that they shrank to a dot behind you and finally vanished. Epictetus, who knew real powerlessness as a slave and found real freedom anyway, taught the principle underneath all of it. If you would be free, do not wish for anything that depends on another. As long as your peace depends on what your enemy does, says, or thinks, they own a piece of you. Take that dependence away and they own nothing. Your silence is how you reclaim every last piece they were holding. The enemy wanted to be the center of your story. Your silence writes them out of it entirely. Years from now, you won't remember the argument you didn't have. You'll only remember the life you built in the space where the fight would have been. The action. Stop measuring victory by what happens to them. Measure it by how little they occupy your mind. Go quiet, turn fully toward your own life, and let time do the rest. The day you realize you've forgotten to be angry is the day you've won completely. So, here's what happens to your enemies when you stay silent. Your silence starves them of the reaction they fed on. It forces them to reveal themselves. It denies them any story to tell about you. Your calm makes their attack look like the problem. It frees you to win where it actually counts. And in the end, it makes them irrelevant. See the thread running through all of it. Not one of these requires you to fight, to argue, or to get the last word. The man who needs the last word is still tied to his enemy. Silence cuts the rope. It's the rare weapon that protects you, exposes them, and frees you all at once, and the only one that costs you nothing to wield. The next time someone comes against you, you won't reach for a comeback. You'll reach for the quiet, and while they wait for the fight that never starts, you'll already be gone, building the life that makes them small. If even one of these reached you, do one quiet thing for yourself. Subscribe, and let this channel be a small daily reminder that your power is loudest when you say nothing at all. Hold the silence next time, just once. Watch what it does to them and what it gives back to you. And remember, the strongest answer you can give the people who wronged you is a life so good it makes the wrong forgettable.